بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أنا دكتور فتح الأصفر أستاذ أمراض القلب. هتكلم معاكم النهارده على ريبورت just published in the New England Journal of Medicine just today April 17. وده أحدث ريبورت بيتكلم عن clinical characteristics of COVID-19 ودي على مجموعة patients في نيويورك سيتي. The report, very short report, concise report. بيتكلم عن حوالي 400 مريض، تحديدا 393 مريض admitted ل two big hospitals في نيويورك. زي ما انتم شايفين these are the characteristics of the patients. These are all the patients. These are the patients who needed invasive mechanical ventilation, and these are the patients who needed non-invasive mechanical ventilation. 130 of the patients had mechanical ventilation, and around 260 had non-invasive mechanical ventilation. So I can say roughly that 1/3 had invasive mechanical ventilation, and 2/3 did not have invasive mechanical ventilation. The median age, as you can see, around 62.2 years, a little bit elder inpatient who had invasive ventilation. Male are the majority of patients, so about 60% of patients total, but those who needed ventilation also were higher in male. We are talking about 70% of patients are male who needed mechanical ventilation. White race are minority. We are talking about 35%. So the majority of the patients at this very high risk category are non-white race, means black or Asian origin. The smoking, surprisingly, were minority. We're talking about 5.1%, or 4.6%, even lower in those who need invasive mechanical ventilation. So smoking was not a big deal in those patients. Obesity was prevalent. I'm talking about more than 1/3 of patients are obese. And even though those who needed mechanical ventilation, around 43% of them were obese, يعني almost 50% of those who needed mechanical ventilation were obese. So obesity, I think, is the highest risk factor for mechanical intubation in those patients. Diabetes, around 1/4 of patients. Hypertension, around 50% of patients. So hypertension was double the incidence of diabetes in this patient cohort. COPD were minority, as you can see, but bronchial asthma were around 12 to 13%. If we combine COPD and asthma together, we're going to have around 18% of the patients are having asthma COPD. Coronary artery disease, around 13%, but in those who need mechanical ventilation, we're around 19%. Fever upon reaching the ED were around 25%, but here in the report, they said fever were present in 77.1%. So fever in general as a presenting a symptom either before coming to the emergency room or during admission were around 77.1%, and cough were around 80%, dyspnea around 56%, myalgia around 23%, diarrhea around 23%, nausea and vomiting around 20%. So this is a presenting complaint in these patients. Either the fever was present in the ED or before the ED or after the ED. This is the regarding the remaining of the manifestation. As you can see, 90% had lymphopenia, around 27% have thrombocytopenia, and many, they didn't define the number exactly, had elevated liver function variables and inflammatory markers. When we go to the outcome, the incidence, the presence of infiltrating chest X-ray, 75%, even in the intubated group, 78%. So the majority are having infiltrates in their chest X-ray. Regarding the outcome, as you can see, arrhythmia developed in 7.4% in the whole cohort, but 18.5% in the group that has been intubated and ventilated. Vasopressor use was high only in the ventilated group, around 95% had vasopressor. So almost all patients who had mechanical ventilation were put on vasopressor. Most probably, I guess it's not enough. Survivingly, bacteremia number were only 11% in the ventilated group and around 5% in the whole group. New renal replacement therapy, renal failure, around 13.3% in the ventilated group and around 5% in the whole cohort. I think this is much lower than my expectation, and maybe it's promising that the kidney is not affected that much as our expectation. Death happened in 10% of the whole cohort, means 40 patients out of 400, but 14.6% of the patients who were intubated and ventilated, and 8% in the group that did not receive any ventilation. So we're talking about 10% mortality in high risk category of patients who are being admitted to the ICUs. Patients who have been discharged till the print of this, till the acceptance of this report, or till the writing of this report, were around 66% of the patients, 260 out of 400. I talk about 130 is still in the hospital, or if we talk about 40 died. So I'm speaking about around 100 patients still in the hospital till the issue of this report. 17% out of those intubated and ventilated have been discharged alive from the hospital. And 237 from those who have not been intubated have been discharged alive from the hospital. So this is the discharge from the hospital. Again, don't forget that the majority of the patients were not, about 2/3 of the patients were not ventilated, and the minority have been, around 1/3 have been ventilated. So this means most of the patients still in the hospital are in the ventilated group, and this is expected. If only 23 discharged, means more than 100 patients still in the hospital out of this group. I think my expectation this will add to the mortality. So don't be deceived by this number, which is 10% only, because still we have 100 patients intubated and ventilated, and you don't know how they will do. So this is a good report published today in the New England Journal of Medicine. It's just observational study, cohort study, registry data. I am presenting this for you to tell you that now anything you write about COVID-19 as a research, either case report, either case series, or small registry, it will be published quickly. Will be published in a kind of 2 weeks. So I'm encouraging everyone working in this field or being exposed to patients with COVID-19 in any specialty, even in cardiology, any specialty, even in surgery. In specialty, you see patient with COVID-19, try to register all the data, record all the data, and you can help in publishing this data at any time. It's very easy. New England Journal of Medicine is publishing a report. I can see it's not ideal report. It's not well written, but anyway, it's published because anyone now is craving to know any data about COVID-19. So again, please share your information, fix your information, record them, that we can help in publishing this data very, very easily, inshallah. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum.